tonight. My goal tonight, in addition to getting out good information, is simply to let you do this, that you can relax. I want you to know that we assume that where people start or where people are at is where they started at. And this is about the last place I thought I would be about 30 years ago. When I was at the age of 24, the pinnacle of all wisdom, I was a pastor and I preached against homeschooling. My vision was sink or swim, live or die. And most young people were sinking and they were not swimming. And God started to deal with us about homeschooling. While I pastored for 25 years, I was actually a public school teacher. Before that, I taught English and coached. My wife was an L-Ed teacher. So we have had to relearn a lot of things as educators. So I preached against it 30 years ago, and now I'm the executive director of the Illinois Christian Educators. I want you to know that life is a process. Homeschooling is a process. You're not going to get there overnight. We are still learning things 30 years later. So I want you to relax tonight and just to enjoy this time. The temptation that we have as adults is that we think we have to know everything before we start. You will be learning how to homeschool the rest of your life. And I think sometimes our mistakes are as important as our triumphs or our victories, because our kids get to see us living real life. And that's what it's all about. Philippians 1:6 says, being confident of this very thing, he who hath begun a good work in you will continue until the day of Christ Jesus. Over the years, I've met many people who are absolutely terrified of homeschooling. I've seen some folks feel pretty cocky about it. In my experience, my observation, those who are terrified tend to go the long haul. Why? They look to Jesus Christ to be their source. It's so easy, like everything else, to make homeschooling about us. And it's so much more than that. So this is not about you figuring out how to homeschool. It's to remind you that we seek first God's kingdom, and knowing after that, everything else shall be added. 1 Thessalonians 5:24 says that faithful is he who called you, who also will do it. We are Illinois Christian home educators. PAACH is area Peoria Christian home educators. Is that right? The word there is Christian, to be Christ-like. It's not about the right curriculum or the right activities. It's about the grace of God at work in our kids' lives. And I want you to know that. God will use, again, our mistakes as well as our victories to teach our kids great things about life. So let's start real quickly with just the basic legal requirements so you'll understand what that is. We are a compulsory attendance age state, which means we have to start homeschooling at a certain age and go until a certain age. Presently, it is 6 to 17. You must start homeschooling your children when they are 6 years old, up and at least through 17. The state of Illinois tried to change that last year, but through our efforts, PAACH joined us, different support groups throughout the state. We defeated that bill, but right now it is 6 to 17. You're required to teach language arts, social studies, math, fine arts, physical science, and physical development and health, and must teach those things in the English language. Now, don't get freaked out over which one of those that I said, because we do all those things. If you teach your kids to take a bath, you're doing health class, right? If you're teaching some type of a math class, you're doing math. If you see a pretty sunrise, you're teaching humanities. So don't get freaked out over those individual descriptions. One of the biggest misnomers with homeschooling is that many folks think that we have to do the same thing that public school does. We have to start our kids at 6 through 3. Homeschooling household is a private school. Your home, the Cox's home, is a private school. Our home is a private school. We've actually named ours Heritage Academy. We have a little stationery that we use as well. So being a private school, you set how many days a year you want to do your homeschooling. You don't have to do the 880 hours, 176 days. You choose what you want to do. You are a private school, just like a parochial school in the Peoria area. You are a private school by law. You also must teach, you don't have to, the public school has to teach character training as part of their legal requirements. We do that naturally as homeschoolers. It's not required of us, but we do that naturally. Also, you do not need any teacher certification. You don't have to go to school to be a teacher. Any parent can do that. And to help alleviate some concern there, Brian Ray is kind of the George Gallup of the homeschooling community. And in his surveys, he has found there is hardly any statistical difference in how well a child does that is dependent upon the parent's education. In other words, whether you're a PhD or a GED, statistically, it is not an indicator of how well your children will do. And that should be of great encouragement to all of us. Also, there is no standardized testing in Illinois. We've worked really hard, and God's been so gracious to give us great laws. With all that's wrong with Illinois, all the fiscal irresponsibility, all the corruption in Chicagoland, we've got great homeschooling laws. So we do not have to do standardized testing. Our kids did not test the first time until they got in college. Finland, which is reported to be the best nation in the world for homeschooling, they don't mandate school until the age of 7. They rarely take exams or have homework until they're teenagers. There are no measurements or no testing at all for the first 6 years. And there's only one mandatory test at the age of 16. And that's the best in the world. And you compare that to most of our, is everybody here public school pretty well? Parents, were you public school? Sure, okay. That sounds so weird for us because we were tested at the first grade. Well, parents might say, well, if I don't test, how do I know if they fall behind? And that's a trap, folks. There's 2 questions you want to be careful about. Behind who and behind what? You know, we have these people in DC who are giving us these standards, some of which they have the educational degrees, but they have no children. They try to put everything in a box, and they have no, and this is the same government, by the way, it's got us now in $25 trillion worth of debt, telling us how to live our lives. So take a breath. Behind who or behind what? We have 11 children, ages 25, I think, down to 8, I think. And we've had some read fluently at 4. We've had others still struggle at 7. And we didn't, 4-year-old reading, we didn't get all, arrogant about that, just like we didn't freak out when our 8-year-old was still struggling. We just understand that God works in different ways with different times with different children. And you've got to get that as homeschooling parents. Otherwise, you'll be living in stress all your life. God has equipped your kids to learn. They want to learn. They're built to learn. If you just start reading to your children, they will learn how to read. Don't be intimidated by all the educational thoughts that are out there. Do you understand? When my wife went to school, outcome-based education was the big catchphrase in education at the time. That was a miserable failure. We've dropped phonics in the public school. That's been a miserable failure. Common Core, you've heard about Common Core. It's a failure. We've got to understand that you are the expert over your children, not somebody out in DC. God gave your children to you. You will watch your kids. You will know what they need when they need it. And plus, God will be there to back you up. So some kids move faster, some move slower. And that's the glory of homeschooling. You don't have to pull back the fast one or push the slower one along further. You guys have heard all the stories like Albert Einstein, Thomas Edison were labeled as idiots because they were slow out of the chute. And of course, they did great things in our nations. So again, we have to understand God has a pace. Every child has his own rhythm. Some professional educators think we're burning our kids out by starting them too soon. Some have said in past that you shouldn't start math with your kids until they're 10 years old. I don't know about that, but we just don't get too freaked out about starting too young other than to fulfill the laws. depending upon which survey or which organization you look at, out of 40 of industrialized nations, America ranks either the 14th on one or the 17th on the other. So we don't have the best model here in America. Yet homeschoolers score at the 80th to 87th percentile. They average about 84th percentile on achievement test scores. Of course, the public schools, the average is 50. Homeschoolers score at the average of 84th percentile on achievement test scores. So let me give you another two questions. We said behind who, behind what. Here's two other questions I encourage my kids to ask. Why and who says? Why and who says? Well, you've got to do this. Well, why? Well, you know, have you ever heard that story? A woman always cut the end of her ham off and she put it into the oven. And one day her child asked her, Mom, why do you cut the end of the ham off when you put it into the oven? And she said, well, that's just the way my mom did it. She said, I'll call and ask her that. I'm sure there's a reason. So she called her mom, the grandmother, and said, hey, Mom, you always cut the end of the ham off before you put it into the stove. Why did you always do that? And the grandmother said it was because it was too big for my pan. So had nothing to do with any secrets. She just did it that way. And the wife assumed there was a secret in that. Folks, there's no secret other than spending time with your children and seeking the face of God. So be careful about why and who says, well, you've got to do it this way. Well, why? A lot of people think, well, it's because everybody does it that way. It's the way the public school did it. It was very hard for my wife and me to homeschool as public school teachers because we were so compartmentalized. I'm at my office in our pole barn right now, and we had desk, we had the unit studies for my wife's bulletin boards when she taught school. We did the Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, then January, February, just like public school. We brought public school home. And I think that has merit. Public school in the home does have merit, but there's a higher way, and we'll get that just in a few moments. So feel free to think outside of the box. For example, when we made transcripts for our oldest 4 daughters, we did home ec 1 and home ec 2 for their junior and senior years. Do you think we actually had a book on home economics? No. They were in the kitchen every day with my wife. They would pick a day that have all the meals. They'd make out the menu. They would do the shopping. That is home economics. They would start doing laundry at 7 or 8 years old as far as folding, start with towels and washcloths. Then they would go on up to actually doing the laundry themselves. My kids, my oldest 4 can rent a home, no problem. Youngest 2 are 10 and 8. The 10-year-old, at least she thinks she can. So we did that with home economics. Current events. Every Tuesday we went to the biggest town close to us is Evansville, Indiana. We had all our lessons there. We did horse lessons on Tuesday, ballet, violin, piano, harp. It was a big day. Well, on the way down there, it's about an hour and a half drive. We listened to Rush Limbaugh. And he would talk. I'd shut it off. We'd talk about what he's talking about, and we'd turn it back on again. And that was our current events class there and back. We had great time of talking about government. One day, my now 21-year-old daughter was 8 at the time, and she came home and she told my wife, she said, Mommy, we've got to move to Indiana. It's just so much more fiscally conservative than Illinois. My wife said, no more Rush, you're done. But the point is, you can think outside of the box. And it's hard to break free of that. It's hard to break free of the thought of math is this, social studies is this. If you can't see on the wall, that's my fish. I figure that's better. I got deer heads and turkey in the background on the other side. We like to hunt. Whenever we killed a deer, we had a biology lesson. We opened it up. We did the field rest. We looked at the intestines, cut up the heart, looked at the ventricles. My kids absolutely love that. As a matter of fact, my oldest daughter is a veterinarian technician now, in part because of those we had out in the woods. Now, you can test if you want to, but it's not mandated. I would just caution you, one night we had a support group meeting, and a lady came and she was pretty teary. And after the meeting was over, I went up and said, hey, what's the problem? And she said, my child just failed a pre-K screening. My first question was, why in the world did you do a pre-K screening if you're going to homeschool? And the answer to that was, well, her brother's son, her nephew did, thought it'd be a good idea to see where her daughter's at. Again, behind who? Behind what? I said, well, why'd she fail? She said she couldn't count to 100. And I said, now, doesn't your daughter know all 66 books of the Bible in a row? And she said, well, yes. I said, you're okay. I said, now, if she can't count to 100 times she's 8 or 9, we can have another discussion. But and that same daughter, by the way, went to a nursing school, a college, and she was named the student of the whole campus. So again, let's not get too excited behind who, behind what, and about testing. When people say there's no laws in Illinois, that's not really accurate. There is the laws that I just stated. What they usually mean is there's no registration. We do not have to register our kids. Now, if your kids, if you've not had any of your kids in school yet, when you start homeschooling maybe in the fall, you do not have to send a notice or anything that you're not on the books. Just go ahead and start. Now, if you're bringing your kids home, it's a good idea to write to the superintendent or to the principal. And if you go to our website, ICHE.org, HSLDA, Arcasia, do you guys have a letter for people going to public school to opt out?
We recommend HSLDA and then ICHE.
Okay, so they'll show you exactly what to say, make it short, make it brief, be kind. If you're taking your kids out, don't take pot shots. And there's 2 examples if your kids are in school and if you're bringing them home. If you move from one district to another district, you don't need to enroll them and then unenroll them. Just you'll be starting as a new student in that area. And again, if you have any questions, you feel free to ask. You want to make sure, again, if you do pull them out, because if your kids are not going there, that you have not written a letter, that can be truancy. You don't want that to happen, of course. So just write a nice letter. You don't say you're homeschooling. Say you're going to attend a private school because you are a private school. No record keeping is required in Illinois. Having said that, we have 11 kids. We can't keep a bunch of stuff. We usually photocopy the front of the textbook, the opening page of contents for each of our kids for each year. That way we know exactly what they've done that year. If you want your kids to journal as they get older, some of the things they're doing, you can use that as English and as records as well. It's, I think, a good idea to have some type of record keeping. I remember reading one story of a couple who got tragically killed in a car wreck, but they kept such good records. Their 18-year-old was followed up with that as well, and the judge gave her permission to keep on homeschooling their kids because they did such a great job at it. Don't let it run you, but it's something you can do. Special needs kids, you can still use the public school services by law. I think we'll skip on to everything else. I would encourage you to consider being a part of HSLDA. It's like $120 unless you have a discount, which I assume Apache probably does. You can get that from Arcasia, or you can pay $1,000 one time fee. It's what we did, so we'll save a lot of money that way, lifetime membership. So that's the legal part. Number 2, ask for God's wisdom, folks. God's with you on this thing. Okay, God doesn't put something in our heart and leave us to just tread water. Ask God for wisdom. I could tell you opportunity after opportunity after opportunity that our kids have had because of God. Things that He aligns. Are there any golfers out there? Let's see if there are any hands. Any golfers? No golfers? A little bit? Well, my son, if you ever watch Golf Channel, the Golf Pro for Golf Channel has been my son's golf teacher. It was just a supernatural thing how God let that happen. My daughter did an internship with horses for 2 years. Turns out the people were top in the nation for halter horses. God will do those kind of things for you as you seek His face. Number 3, do some research, read some books, talk to others that you know, that you respect. You see the fruit in their kids' lives as well. I always encourage you to go to Apache. Go to the conference. Go there first. If you want to go to another one, you can come to ICHE's. We give you a $25 coupon because Apache and us work so well together. I encourage you to go every single year. I've been going since the year 2000 with the exception of 2 misses because I need that myself. And you get around other people, you get new takeaways every time you go. And again, be careful to remember that all models of homeschooling are not created equally. And we'll talk about that in just a second as well. But bottom line is this: the best way to learn how to homeschool, start swimming. Just jump in there and do it. You'll make mistakes. God is bigger than your mistakes. Where sin abounds, God's grace abounds even more. It's also true for parental mistakes. Number 4, very important, get your vision. Get your vision, because your why will determine your how. For instance, in our home, now there are secular homeschoolers, and that's great. We're all work together that their main goal is great academics. Our goal is not Harvard, it's heaven. And so Jesus Christ is first and foremost. We look for curriculum. We look for curriculum that is Christ-centered. Some curriculum out there is not, even it's sold at Christian conferences, are not Christ-centered. So we look for things that are Christ-centered. We always start the day with devotions at our house. If we get up late, we get it, math's going long, devotions takes precedence, because that's the vision for why we're doing what we are doing. Because our why, again, will explain our how. I'd like to real quickly share our vision, ours being ICHE, and I think also Apache shares much of the same wording. We use the words homeschooling, home education, home discipleship intermittently. We all change those. But I want to explain, homeschooling is not just about the 3 R's. Again, many homeschoolers public school at home, and again, that has merit, but I think one of the highest models is home discipleship. What's the difference? Well, if you do homeschooling, underneath that, you'll just have math, reading, arithmetic, social studies, science. But if you disciple your kids, it looks like this: home discipleship, know God, know God's word, have character, work ethic, maybe a home-based business, and you have academics. And then under that, you'll have arithmetic, reading. It's a subset of the subset. It's not the main line. Does that make sense to everybody? Can you guys give me some handshakes? Okay. That makes all the difference in the world, because it's more than just about academics. Homeschooling is life preparation. We want to prepare our kids for life. And I've seen kids who might not be the best with the books, but are great with their hands and would turn out to be great mechanics or electricians or plumbers. And can I tell you, there'll always be a need for plumbers and electricians, my friends. There won't always be a need for stockbrokers, especially right now, right? Let me jump here real quick because I want to finish up. You got to count the cost. You got to count, there's a cost. There's a financial cost, usually one income family. There's a spiritual and emotional cost because you're going against the flow, not just of extended family members, but of church members as well. And you're going to feel bad enough about yourself sometimes, and folks will be there to help you out in that process. So there's a cost to pay. I always tell people one thing that's important is remember that you cannot judge your success in homeschooling by the days, weeks, months, and even a year. It's usually every 2 or 3 years you'll see these big changes. And how I illustrate this is take remember the dreaded protractor in school? If you'd made a 90 degree, right, you can tell the difference of those at the vertex. You can tell the difference. But if you have a 45 degree and compare it to a 44 degree, at the vertex, the pencil overlaps, right? There's hardly any difference at all. But as you go further out, you'll see a little discrepancy, a little difference between the 2 degrees. You go out a little bit further yet or farther yet, and it'll get to be about 1 inch. And you going out into infinity, that 1 degree will be a massive difference. And folks, that's what happens in the homeschooling experience. When your kids are young, they'll look like every other kid. Sometimes worse, because they don't know all the sarcasm of the public school. They don't know all the hip sayings, but that's okay. You bide your time, because at 7 and 8, they're going to answer the phone with yes, sir, or no, sir, or good day. And their manners are going to start showing. And at 11 and 12, there's going to be a bigger difference yet. And time they get to 2021, things that we learned at 40, they will already be learning. So remember that success in homeschooling is oftentimes measured not by days, not by weeks, and not by months, but usually by years. That's why you must have a vision. Then number 7, you need to create a schedule. Please remember, and Arcasia, I'm sure, will nod her head on this, that schedules are great servants, but terrible masters. Do not try to plan every minute of the day. Do not do that. You'll make yourself and your kids miserable. Enjoy the journey. We start out with devotions in the morning. Sometimes they'll go 20, 30 minutes. We've had them go an hour and a half. Just God is moving in our kids' life, and so we'll just push everything back a little bit. If it gets bad, we'll just cut math out. I hate math. We'll just drop math. The schedule there is to serve you. Enjoy the journey. I know I felt such pressure making sure my kids succeeded. Folks, that's not my job. My job is to seek the face of God, do all that I can in my own powers, and God will give them what they need. Please hear this. Moms, all you moms, hear this right now. Your kids cannot be great in every subject. Okay? They can't be an expert on every subject. And here's the deal. Your kids, specifically your sons, will not get paid for their weaknesses. They'll get paid for their strengths. I'm not a numbers guy, in case you can't tell. If I was an accountant, I'd say the decimal point goes right out. Let's put it right there. I hate details. I hate numbers. I'm a word guy, and that's what I get paid for. I get paid to speak. I get paid to talk with people. That's my strength. For my weakness, what do? I hire an accountant. I've told my sons, if you have a business, you don't have to be great at everything. You can hire out those other things. You just be good at what God has made you to be good at. My daughter started loving animals when she was 2. Her first words were moo. Not mommy, not daddy, moo, nay. She's a veterinary technician now. My 3rd daughter, all she wanted to do growing up was to be a nurse and go to Ethiopia. She's a nurse. She's been to Ethiopia twice now. God will put things in our children's hearts, folks. Our job is more to discover and nurture than to create. That is his job. Let your kids play. Albert Einstein said, play is the highest form of research. Fred Rogers, Mr. Rogers said, play is often talked about as if it were a relief from serious learning, but for children, play is serious learning. Play is the work of childhood. Now, notice what I haven't talked about yet. What have I not talked about? Curriculum, right? I have seen folks just they live in the curriculum, the vendor hall. Curriculum, again, is like the scheduling. It's a great servant, but a terrible master. I think you can pick a lot of different curriculum and do fine. I don't think the power's in the curriculum. I think it is in spending time with your kids and enjoying the journey with your kids. There's different styles underneath this canopy of home discipleship. There's a box curriculum. You get everything that you want in one package. Do not do every page in that box. You do not have to find or follow the math book every single page. You don't have to do that. You can skip some. If your kid knows 2 + 2, do not make him go over that every year 5 and 6 times. If they've got the concept, jump. It feels good just to jump sometimes. Let the curriculum serve you. You can do I know in your area, the Charlotte Mason's big, a lot of nature stuff. Some folks like the classical approach as well. We do a hodgepodge of what in our home. We found things that we like. We just try to get things that are Christ-centered. And that to us is really a big issue. You got to be careful, even with literature. I was an English teacher. Mark Twain, Nathaniel Hawthorne, they were God haters. So you can still talk about those things, but you need to expose the worldview in that process. And finally, and most importantly, let your home be a place of peace, a place of joy. That will do more for your kids' learning than anything else. How many kids I've heard with public school, they go to school, they have stomach aches or headaches because of the stress there. I'm doing another talk this weekend at Apache called The Mighty Impact of the Family Meal Table. I encourage you to listen to that. We have a 16-foot long table in our dining room. There's time we'll have 20 people at our table because we got boyfriends coming down now. And we'll spend maybe 2 hours at our table just talking about life, current events, the coronavirus, what's right, what's sensationalized. Great place to teach homeschooling. So I hope this helps. I just want to take the stress off of you, put it onto Jesus Christ. If you seek his face, these other areas will fall into place. All right? Arcasia?
Well, thanks, Kurt. Thanks for bringing that talk. That was really encouraging. I've heard several of your talks this week, and I've been encouraged each time I'm hearing them again this weekend when we have the convention. In case anybody has seen there, if you're not registered for our online convention, I just posted the link. We are opening it up for our new to homeschoolers tonight. It's one night only. It closes at 10 p.m. tonight, so do sign up tonight before 10 p.m. at the discounted price for you guys. We've offered that for you guys. We do it every year as a service to the people that are just starting out with homeschooling and need some information about it. So this comes to the time that we're going to kind of talk to you guys about our experience homeschooling, and then we'll turn it over to the Myers, and they'll give a brief 5 minutes too about their experience homeschooling, and then we'll open it up for questions. I see that somebody else has already posted a question. So if you have questions, feel free to post them. And then also we're going to use the raise your hand feature. There should be a button that you can click on to raise your hand, and then I can unmute you with your question. Just a reminder too, before I go any further, we are recording tonight. So if you want the copy of this, you can send a request to my email. If you don't want to be on the recording video-wise, you can turn your video off. But just a note, it doesn't record you if you're not speaking. If there's no audio, it only records the audio. So whoever's speaking is being recorded, which would be us right now.
Yep.
All right, so our experience homeschooling. Well, we've been homeschooling for 15 years. We have 5 kids. Our oldest is a junior at Olivet Nazarene University, and she did graduate in our homeschooling. And then we have a high schooler, 2 junior hires, and a preschooler. So we've got a wide age range. When we first started 15 years ago, I was one of those school at home people, and I bought a box curriculum because I wanted to make sure that I had everything that my daughter was going to need and I wasn't going to forget anything. And that worked for about 2 years. And then we moved on from that because I was ready to pull my hair out. My daughter was ready to pull her hair out because we discovered that there was things that she just did not enjoy in that program that we started off with. So we are more eclectic homeschoolers now, which kind of what Kurt mentioned. We do a hodgepodge of things. We do different curriculums here and there for science, history, that kind of thing. We find that works well for our family. Our kids are very creative kids, and so we use that in our homeschooling. So we do a lot of hands-on activities. 2 resources that I've used in my homeschooling that I absolutely love, I'd recommend getting for new homeschoolers, is the Dr. Kathy Cook. She has the How Am I Smart book. It talks about the 8 smarts and about how every person has some form of these 8 smarts, whether they're strengths or weaknesses, and it really helps you to see your children, their strengths, what they're good at, what they enjoy, how they learn best. And it also shows you their weaknesses too, but she also encourages you to build those weaknesses, not just let them stay stagnant. So that's a great resource I read that book probably 8 or 9 years ago, and it really changed our homeschooling experience when I read that. And then the other book that I recommend is Educating the Wholehearted Child by Sally Clarkson. That's another great resource. It's a thick book, so don't expect to read it in a day. Like I said, it's a resource for us. I'll pick it up every now and then and read a couple chapters here and there, but it's not one that you're going to sit and read in an evening for sure. But that's our experience. If you want to add anything to that story of our homeschooling journey.
Well, I will tell you real quick how we got started homeschooling. We started out with our oldest child going to Bright Futures. Some of you may have heard of that. It's a preschool program, half day at the public schools. And we put her in that, and come the next year, they automatically enroll in kindergarten, and my wife was filling out the paperwork when I came home from work, and I'm like, what are you doing? She said, well, I'm filling out for paperwork for kindergarten. I said, no, we're homeschooling. And she kind of looked at me and said, what?
We are?
We had never talked about it. But I had 2 younger siblings who were adopted, who my mother homeschooled after I graduated high school. And I liked so much what I saw there that I wanted to do that with my kids. But we had never it never even occurred to my wife as an option.
Yeah.
So that was how we got started on our journey. It was kind of I sprung it on her, and we jumbled and figured out how to get started, and yeah, and it became something really great. So our oldest graduated at 17, a year early, went to Olivet, and is almost done with her 3rd year there. If you're worried about colleges and how they're going to react to your homeschooling child, they are searching for homeschoolers right now. There is such a difference in character and learning style and the desire to learn. The differences between public school and homeschool are so different, and they're seeing a lot of benefits from homeschoolers that they're searching for. So you don't have to worry, are they going to accept my child? They want your homeschooled child.
Yeah, our daughter was accepted into 3 different colleges when
Right.
she applied, so we haven't had an issue yet.
Yep, she pretty much got to choose where she wanted to go. So that shouldn't be a concern. I think at this point, we'll go ahead and turn it over to the Myers and let them tell you a little bit about their family and their homeschool experience.
Hi, everyone. I kind of like this format, although I'm missing the pizza or whatever we would have had. I've been doing remote work for the last couple of weeks, and I kind of like it. It creates a different dynamic for building relationships because we're kind of inviting each other into our homes. And before Christina and I say anything, I'm so thankful that you've all joined tonight and have invited us into your homes. And I'm just gonna pray real quickly for all of you on your journey. Father, thank you for this night. Thank you that we're still able to come together here. And I know that not everybody's going to be able to share their burdens or where they are, but I know that you know them. And at the power of prayer and coming to you through Jesus, and we're drawn to your throne. And I just pray that whatever is going through the lives of each one here tonight, that they would be drawn to come to your throne and find grace at this specific time of need, and to find wisdom, and to know that their journey, what they need is not of themselves, but it's all of Christ, and finding that by clinging to your word, by seeking you and letting you work through us. We just give you thanks, and again, just are so thankful for this group of people and their ambition to raise their children for you. Just give them that power and strength, we pray in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ. Amen. So we're Scott and Christina, and I'm the one who rambles on. In our relationship, I'm the conceptual guy, and Christina is the tactical, get it done sort of person. So I'll just real quickly say that it's the opposite of Arcasia and James, that Christina had to convince me and still has to convince me that this is the way that we should go. So I'm more in Kirk's court there, and I'm so thankful for Christina and the vision that the Lord has laid on her. So in our homes too, and just a reminder of our story, and as we speak to you, God not only calls us and has different roles in what we do, but he's also called us to learn communication one with another. And Christina and I learn that every day, and can have struggles in how we communicate. But the Lord speaks to her and affirms how our family is to be guided. And I need to hear that, and as well, come before the Lord and provide that spiritual leadership. But it's so important that you communicate one with another. And one thing that Kirk kind of touched around is the fact that having 20 people around a table isn't just precious, it's also sanctifying. because you get to see, you're like, why is that kid doing that? Oh, that's me. So you learn so much when we're trying to raise our children. And so I first of all just want to say that this is a great blessing that God has given to you to delve into, and it's not you, it's all of the Lord, and you need to look to each other and do this in a partnership as you raise your children. I know that each day I have to look, each moment have to look to the Lord, even though we've started on the journey here of raising 8 children. It is just moment by moment with what we need for strength and for grace in doing that. So Christina can tell you a little bit more about our journey.
Well, I'm Christina. We do have 8 kids. We started off kind of the same way as Arcasia, doing school at home. We lived in Washington State, and we did something called a PPP, which is a parent partnership program. And the school district would provide funding for certain things, but they would also provide a whole bunch of red tape for you to wind yourself up in. So after doing that for a couple of years, I realized that I was actually working for the school district, and that I didn't need all that red tape anymore. I could do this on my own, because over the course of those few years, I had gotten my own curriculum from friends, and I had kind of, as the years went on, and I'm still kind of on this journey, but we started off, our oldest is 14, so with her in preschool, that would be like 2010, I guess, 2009. And the longer we homeschool, the less regulated, I guess you want to say, we've become. And it just keeps getting stripped back down to the basics, back down to the basics, back down to the basics. And every couple of years, I'm like, oh, let's add in this extra thing, and let's do another thing. And then it slowly fades away, and we go back to the basics again. And sometimes those extra things are really fun, and sometimes they're not fun at all. Sometimes they're really fun for me and not so much for the kids. I'm like, oh, I wish I had learned Latin when I was in high school. Let's do this now. Not everyone's on board. So I guess I just wanted to say, I've tried quite a few different curriculums, and I would probably say all you really need to homeschool is a library card and maybe some pens and paper. It doesn't have to be expensive. You can really do it on a shoestring. Even things like field trips, there's a Facebook group for field trips in the Peoria area, and you can get in there and go on field trips, and sometimes there's a minimal cost and sometimes there's not. But it's very doable. I was one of those parents that started out, like I said, really organized, but also too confident, because I had checked all my boxes. I had my nice little list of how it was going to go. I'd read all the mommy blogs. I could totally do this. And by the time I had gotten halfway through kindergarten, I was a mess, a total mess. And that was how I went to my first homeschooling convention. And like I said, we were living in Washington State at the time. But thank goodness we went there, and it was just, and I expected to go by myself, and thankfully Scott offered to go with me, because we really got some great teaching. And instead of hearing, this is how to get your child to sit still, and this is how to get your child to finish their math, and all those kinds of things, we heard, this is why you should be focusing on leading your child to Jesus. And I heard encouragement from my heart that made me the person that my kids needed me to be as their mom. And I was their mom first and their teacher second. So all that to say, when you try to do school at home, which I feel, honestly, my heart goes out to all the people who are trying to keep up with the list of things that they get from a public school district that they need to do at home, because to me, that's the opposite of homeschooling, when somebody else chooses for you a set of tasks and then puts them into your home, and then you are in a position where you need to enforce this list on your children. And that's not homeschooling. It can't be individualized. And it is damaging to your relationship with your child often, I think. And so if you can do all those things and make it fun, and that's great, then that's great. That's wonderful. But if you are, I think there's too many people out there just struggling, realizing, this isn't what I wanted for my child. Homeschooling is terrible. It doesn't have to be like that. And a book that I would recommend, actually, that I wish I had probably when I started homeschooling, would be this one. And this is probably backwards, but it's called The Unhurried Homeschooler. It's by Dorenda Wilson, right? Yes. And I heard her speak earlier this year, and she's just so great. And she kind of lays out like the very bare bones basics of what you might do for elementary academics. And she has just a few other ideas in there too. But also, if you need more resources, I'm around. I'm available.
And at the end here, before we close out, we'll give you contact information so that you could reach out to us or friend Christina on Facebook for any questions that you might have.
Okay, so that's it for us, I think.
Well, thanks, Scott and Christina, for giving us a little bit into your homeschooling life journey that's happened so far. And like I said, we are open for questions. If we do have any homeschoolers, or I should say people who have been forced into schooling at home or homeschooling because of the current situation that we have with the coronavirus, please let us know if there's any questions that we can help you with. If there's any encouragement, we'd be more than willing to do that. Like Scott and Christina said, both Scott and Christina and myself and my husband are available on Facebook. You can friend request us. It's Arkeisha Cox and Christina Myers. You can find us out on there on Facebook to connect with us there. We'd be more than willing to answer questions. I would just encourage everybody, and our homeschooling journey today is completely different than when it was when we first started 15 years ago.
Yes.
Expect changes, expect it to grow, expect mistakes. I mean, don't let the mistakes that you make drag you down and discourage you from homeschooling. Nobody's perfect. I'm not perfect. My husband's not perfect.
What?
We've made mistakes, and we've had to toss curriculum because it just did not work for our family. Yes, it was a cringe because we spent money on that curriculum, but we ultimately want what's best for our family and for our children. So on the things that, questions, we had a question earlier about SATs and Common Core. What I would say with this question is our experience, because our oldest is a junior at Olivet, and she took the ACT. She was homeschooled from kindergarten through 12th grade. She did her 11th grade and 12th grade year at the same time. She didn't have a problem with the ACT, and a lot of schools right now aren't necessarily going SAT or ACT. Some of them are actually veering away from those testing programs. It just depends on the school as far as whether it's required or not. I would just encourage you that ultimately, where do you want your child to go? Where does your child want to go? And just that could be your path. I wouldn't so much worry about the scores, or there's things that you can get out there that would help you if you're more concerned about the SATs. There's SAT books. I bought an ACT book for my daughter to learn from and to just help her study. And because she's one of those people that doesn't like tests. She has test anxiety. So we used that, and we've actually never really had a problem yet. I mean, I say yet because we've only graduated one. We still have 4 more to go to graduate. But are there any other questions as far as things that we can answer?
No, I would also just remind you, Common Core is a method of learning. And really the whole point of homeschooling is finding the method that works best for each individual child. So in my opinion, Common Core doesn't really work at all. But if you have a child that understands it, that's great. But I wouldn't worry too much about the method. It's more about helping your child learn the way that they learn. That's why the 8th Grade Smarts book,
Yeah, by Kathy Cook.
by Kathy Cook, is such a good resource, because it will help you to see your child's strengths. If they're nature smart, then they're more likely to learn by getting out in nature and doing things than they are by,
That's
reading a math book or something.
actually, that's all 3 of our girls. You realize that?
So, you find out, which smarts your kids are, if they're music smart, or if they're math smart, or if
People
they're
smart.
language smart, or people smart,
Word smart. We discovered that Kirk is word smart.
Yes, he is.
Because he mentioned it.
We have a couple of children that are word smart, and they will let you know, because they will talk your ear off nonstop. But your child, each individual child, will learn differently, and the best curriculum to use, the best method, is the way that they learn. So I just wanted to encourage that Common Core, it doesn't have to be an issue at all.
Mm-hmm. All right,
And
so we have a
also-
question from Nikki. Nikki's iPhone.
Hi, this is John, her husband,
Okay.
Nikki's husband. We have our 3 girls. They're 12, 11, and 9. And our question is we're brand new to this, and so we want to homeschool the kids, but don't know what's best to say. Okay, do we go with a box set for a curriculum, or is it best starting out? Is it best to have a box set, or is it easier to say let's like the Myers said, get a library card and go use a pencil and paper and learn that way?
Can I?
Go ahead, Christina.
So the difference, have you guys been in public school before?
Yes.
They've been in public school up till now. Yeah, so the difference between the two, between going to a school where they have to sit in class with, another 25 kids their age, and then coming home and doing things in just such a completely different way, is pretty profound. It can be kind of a stressful time for the kids and for the parents also. You're learning a whole new system of being at home, a whole new system of running your family, really. Everything's going to change. Your meals are going to change. The way you buy groceries is going to change. The way you go to the store is going to change. The way that you do laundry is going to change. The way that you clean the house is going to change. And there are so many things involved with that a lot of people recommend something called deschooling. And that just means that you take time off from academics to learn to just be a family for a while and kind of take your summer vacation. And I've seen recommended up to a month for every year that your child has been in school. So if they're in 5th grade, you might need to take off 5 months. I feel like that can be a bit excessive. I think you know your kids best. And I think you're gonna realize when you start needing to add things in. But if it was me, I would probably start with a library card, because what you want to do is kind of find out what your kids are interested in. What are they gonna do when nobody is setting things up for them? When they don't have to spend the whole day looking at the clock and wondering how many more minutes until the reading lesson is over, how many more minutes until recess. And you can, I'm not saying you shouldn't have a schedule, but you get to kind of do that a little more organically. You can make a schedule that just naturally kind of flows with your family, or you can, instead of having a schedule, you can have just a short list of things that you're going to do today. Today, we're going to all eat breakfast and then clean up the kitchen, and then we're going to read for a little while, or I'm going to read out loud to the kids for a while. That's always a huge one. It's great for their vocabulary to hear those words spoken out loud. Maybe mom doesn't want to read, and so we're going to all listen to an Audible book together.
Well,
But that getting into literature is just really important.
And did you say, is it Ryan? Is that right?
It's John.
Or John? Okay.
John and Nikki.
Layman.
And Nick, and so John, is Nikki going to be the primary homeschooler?
Yes, she is. She's a stay-at-home mom, and it's only logical, because it's like the one thing that we have learned and noticed is that public school does a really good job of tearing kids down.
Their self-esteem.
They are not encouraged. They're not growing. It's like the kids are super smart, but they're being critiqued so much and told that they're not, it's just frustrating, because they come home frustrated, irritated, and it's like, for about 6 months we've been toying with the idea we got to homeschool, and then hearing everything tonight, it's just like, wow, this is where we're at. This is what we need to do.
Yeah. So that's the other dynamic that Christina kind of touched around, but the first thing, like Christina said, is relationship. Make sure that's established in your home. The second thing is man, this is going to be a big thing for Nikki. So she's going to need some support in this. Christina's going to deal with yelling kids.
Oh yeah.
So the second thing is just that support, that Nikki's going to need, but each one of you are going to need. Now, we started out with this, so like some of what we're talking about here is, for us, is more academic than what it is experiential. However, I'll tell you our experiences. Sometimes the academic part of homeschooling, or even the discipleship, isn't going the right way, and we just need to shift things, stop what we're doing, take a pause. Spring breaks come pretty often at our house. Like, hey, it's time to have spring break, or we're doing all outside activities. So the relationship and paying attention to how the children responding, how caring for each other, caring for Nikki's mental sanity is really important as you're stepping into.
That's the thing that I don't want her to get, is so stressed out and overwhelmed, and just feel like she's going crazy because the kids are at home and she doesn't, to know that, to take a month or two, or let's say we take 3 months and the house gets decluttered, everybody gets their chores, understands their roles and responsibilities, and then it can work so much better, instead of, here's your box set, here's the curriculum, you got to do your homework, you got to do this.
I definitely recommend, with what the Myers are saying, is the deschooling aspect. We're getting into springtime right now. It would be great just getting outside and exploring nature. There you go, you got your science. Taking nature walks, go walking in the woods, discover some bugs, just spending time together as a family. Also, because a lot of the times schools also are excellent at is tearing down family relationships. And so definitely spend the time of rebuilding family relationships and just enjoying each other. It's not going to be easy at times. You are going to have your moments where you're questioning, did I choose to do this? And was this the right choice? I mean, also just having a good support system. I know we got a couple of questions here about the social aspect of homeschooling. Well, right now, everybody's isolating. Nobody's socializing right now. But I can tell a little bit about our past experience with socialization. Honestly, that is a myth that a lot of homeschoolers or people that are coming from the public school and trying to homeschool, or public school people themselves have thought that, homeschoolers aren't socialized. No, the problem is homeschoolers aren't socialized with their specific age group necessarily. They are socialized with a wide range of age groups. I mean, our children have been in groups from birth all the way up to adult and senior adults. Right. And so it teaches them how to socialize with a wide range of age groups. That's the thing that we noticed with our oldest daughter at Olivet is the kids that are in her age group there at Olivet, they did not know how to socialize with anybody other than people that they were their own age.
Right.
So that's a struggle. We've had things where we've done co-ops, we've done choirs.
Our girls have actually volunteered at the nursing home. In fact, like Kirk said, opportunities will present themselves. My oldest daughter actually ended up with 2 different jobs, helping specific residents and being paid by a relative because they wanted somebody there looking after their relative. But our girls both have volunteered at the nursing home. So they've had conversations. I think what happens is homeschoolers, because you're not trapped in a classroom with a whole bunch of kids your own age, so you have the opportunity to interact with people of all different ages. And so I would actually make the argument, and I think it's a valid one, that homeschoolers have the ability to be better socialized than public school children, because you can go anywhere and our kids will talk to random strangers that come up to talk to us of all kinds of ages, and we'll have a conversation with them, and you don't see that from public schoolers.
Yeah, Kirk, you're going to make a comment. I see that there's a couple of questions around the social aspects.
Yeah, to piggyback on what James said, I have a statistic here in front of me. Thomas Smedley did his master's thesis at Radford University in Virginia, and he did several testing, and they combined that, and they found out that the homeschooled children scored in the 84th percentile in people skills versus the public school who scored in the 27th percentile.
Yeah.
So 84 versus 27, exactly what James said, because your kids interact with a whole different range of ages, a whole different range of personalities. They learn to have a vocabulary bigger than LOL or cool or whatever it might be. It's just a well-rounded. I know several homeschoolers whose closest friends are 60 and 70. My daughter did a GOAT internship. The lady was 70 years old. She loved being with her. And so they get a lot broader view of life as well.
Okay, so just to touch base again, I see there's a question about getting out of the mindset of public school structure. Here's one of the things about public school, and I went all the way through public school. I was bullied a lot. I hated school. And so even though I had pretty good grades, I didn't learn near as much as I was capable of. So getting out of that public school structure, that's why the library card is a great idea. De-school for a while. Take your kids to the library, say, okay, what is one thing that interests you that you'd like to learn about? Now go find a book on that. And let them learn to enjoy learning again. Because a lot of the public school setting is very dull. It's very boring for a lot of kids, especially if your kids are really smart and they're, sharing a classroom with kids that might not be as smart as them. They're sitting around waiting for the less smart people to catch up. And so they're not learning that much. So they may not enjoy learning right now because they've forgotten what it's like to have that joy of learning something you're interested in. Go to the library. Set them loose on what interests you. What might you want to be when you grow up? So if somebody wants to be a firefighter, right? Our oldest son is fascinated with weather. Every time we go to the library, he goes and gets the natural disaster records books, and he looks up tornadoes and earthquakes and the statistics. He can't get enough of thunderstorms. I mean, it's what makes him excited. That's great for him. I don't understand it myself, but he loves to learn about natural disasters.
Kirk.
Let your kids loose in the library. Let them enjoy learning again.
Oh, yeah. Hey, Kirk, one person here is asking, how do they get out of the mindset of the public school structure? So from your experience as an educator, how do you make that shift from academia to homeschooling? And you're muted there.
Yeah, and repeat the first part you cut out on me.
So it says, the question is, my wife wants to know how to get out of the mindset of a public school structure. She has a hard time understanding how everyday life is a lesson, and he's the primary parent homeschooling.
Yeah. Well, I think one thing, and what both of you couples have said are just so good. When you first come home, if nothing else, the first year you reconnect as a family on a meaningful level. That to me is a successful homeschooling year. I mean, you're talking between the three of us. There's probably 60 years, 70 years of homeschooling experience here, and we're saying the very same thing. And no, it's not a conspiracy. This is really true. Okay, the words that both couples here are giving you are just really true. I would encourage you just to pray for grace, because I didn't get this at first. Like Scott, my wife had the vision of discipleship, and we agreed on the homeschooling, but I didn't see the discipleship as quickly as she did. And now to us, everything is a lesson. Banana spiders, you know, you throw a grasshopper in there, they go wrap it up, they suck the blood. Man, we've had so many great biology lessons at the expense of grasshoppers. It's those everyday little things that there are lessons every day. We did the storm chasing. Was that James? Was that you? That was Scott and Christina. We did the storm chasing thing for a while too. And you just pray for God's grace to help you understand that. God will teach you how to do that. I did not have that. And when your kids, if they see a cup on the stairs and they pick that cup up, even if it's not theirs, or a piece of paper is dropped, man, that's homeschooling right there. Mm-hmm. You're teaching to be responsible, self-motivated, thinking of others before themselves. It's these daily things that will radically change the way your kids do life. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
It is really hard to get out of the mindset, but once you break through, and if you see your need already, which is the first part, when you see your need, you just start praying, God will illuminate your eyes in how to do that. I'm just sure of it.
That's for sure. And to follow up with what you're talking about, Grace, I would also encourage to let your kids see repentance. They don't see that in the public school. They're not going to see their teachers apologize and say, oh, I made a mistake. This was wrong for me. There are going to be mistakes, and there are going to be times that you may lose your temper, or your kids may see you go off the rocker. Come back to that moment and let your kids know, hey, mama really made a mistake here. I shouldn't have lashed out. I shouldn't have reacted that way. That was wrong for me. And let them see that's another character trait that you're showing them in their homeschooling, in your guys' homeschooling journey. So definitely I would encourage that also. And something else I wanted to mention too is you guys are not, in your homeschooling journey, and a lot of people will like ask yourselves, well, how long is it going to take me to do a homeschooling day? Don't time yourself, because if you're going to compare it to a public school, you're going to be done probably in half the time, because they're not competing with other kids. Mm-hmm. If we're going to sit there and judge it by curriculum, they're liable to get done, especially if they're younger, like under high school. They're going to be done by lunch. And then you have more opportunities for character training and for play and for other things that they might enjoy too. So don't set yourself to a timetable on that journey, because you'll just probably open yourself up for more frustration when it comes to that.
And my wife was a public school teacher for 2 years before we got pregnant. And it's often been said that a 2-hour homeschool day is equivalent to all day at school. And she has said, time you take out potty breaks, waiting for the slowest child to get done, 2-3 hours when they're younger goes a long way.
It does. And for us personally, what our homeschooling journey has looked like the past several years is we are year-round schoolers. We school year-round, which means we do 6 weeks of schooling and then we take a week off. And then for Christmas, we usually take 2 to 3 weeks off. So that's been a great opportunity for us too. So homeschooling journeys, like we've mentioned here several times tonight, every family's homeschooling journey is going to look different, because every family has different dynamics in it and different characters, traits in that family. So we just encourage you to find out what's best for your family and work through the mistakes that you make, and you'll come out at the other end with a successful homeschooling journey.
And try to, both parents really do need to be involved in some way. For my part in our homeschool journey, I'm the math guy. So when my kids have problems with math, they wait till I get home from work and they bring it to me and we sit down and we go over it. Each parent, you each have your strengths, and those should, work together complementary to the benefit of your child. So let them have the benefit of each of your strengths is what I'm saying. If only one parent is doing all the schooling, your kid is missing out.
And you know that from experience.
I don't know what you mean.
Okay, short story here. When we first started homeschooling, the first 3 to 4 years was on my shoulders, and I was starting to get to the end of my rope, so to speak. And we went to an PAACH convention, and he listened to I don't remember who was it, James McDonald, I think, was speaking, and basically enlightened him on the role the husband and the father can take in the homeschooling. And he came home that night, and it felt like a huge weight off of my shoulders, because he said, you know what, this is supposed to be both of us, and we're partnering together on this journey. So that's a little side note into our story.
If I could throw one thing in, so you all know we're just real people. I did math with my kids, and I'm not a math person, for about 3 months. This is no lie. This is not exaggeration. Every day somebody cried, and it wasn't me. It was a terrible experience. The superintendent called me and I got fired. So even today we joke about that. We kind of twitch a little bit, but we make mistakes, but God is faithful. I love what said Arcadia about the repentance. Man, that's a lot. That's Christian life. And when our kids see that happening, wow, that's the sweetest part of homeschooling.
Definitely. All right, it looks like we have another question here. It says, what is the best way to find a homeschooling group to join? Well, Facebook. There are several different groups among Facebook. You can contact Apache. I think we have a couple on our sites, on our website, of co-ops and things. Ask around, because more than likely somebody knows something, especially in the homeschooling circle. Christina, if you have any suggestions too.
Yeah, go like find one and go and visit it, and then ask them if they know of any other co-ops in the area, and go and visit them too. You should visit more than one for sure. Don't just go to the first one and be like, oh, well, this seems okay. It's hard to know what you're missing out on, and it might take you a couple of years to kind of realize, oh, it occurs to me that maybe that this isn't quite a good fit for our family. And that's just great. Different groups are different, and that's wonderful. Aren't we glad that they are different from each other? So just make sure you visit more than one, and ask around. Homeschooling people are the people that know the other homeschooling people. So just ask them for recommendations. When we moved here just around 3 years ago, I kind of had a hard time finding co-ops on the Facebook group. And I know that they're there, and I think there's a file on one of the Facebook groups, supposedly, of co-ops. And I had a really hard time. It took me a year.
It's not necessarily updated the whole time. And sometimes co-ops can be exclusive. And sometimes they just don't. You have to find the right person to know about the co-ops too. Yeah. You can contact the Apache's Facebook page if you have questions about organizations or groups to join. We do have some resources that we can share with you guys if you want to contact us there. Also, I am the moderator for a Facebook group called Peoria, Illinois Area Homeschoolers. It's not the greater Peoria one, it's the Peoria, Illinois Area Homeschoolers. If you're not part of that group, you can join that group. There's lots of talk and conversations on there about different groups, especially in the fall time when things first start up. People will be posting their alerts as to, and in January too, when the second semester starts, people usually post, different organizations that you can join and be a part of.
And let me emphasize what Kirk said too, is to pray for what the Lord need, what the Lord's bringing into your life, and to supply for what you need. A group might not be the thing for you. Some groups, I was going to say our crutch. I'm going to temper my comments. Some groups people look to say, oh, you know, we can't do this, and so I'm looking for this group to make that, you know, to fill that gap for curriculum and that sort of thing. Start on your knees, and let the Lord show you where He can provide and help in those gaps. Don't be freaked out. Just look to the Lord and head in the direction, and you'll find those right connections, the right things that you need for providing for your children and for each other.
And find the people that you admire and see what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, find those people, and you're like, oh, I'm hoping my kids kind of turn out like that. You know, and what is it about that that's attractive to you? Is it that they are well mannered and that they can speak to you, or you know, if they know, you know, all the geography or whatever, and that might not be the right direction for you. But try to find the kids, and you're like, man, those are just some nice kids. I hope my kids turn out like that, you know, and then see what those families are doing.
Definitely.
They probably just have a large spanking stick.
Timing is also everything too. For us, we were in charge of a homeschool co-op in Chillicothe that we ran for about 6 or 7 years. Towards the end of that 6 or 7 years, it became a season for us to break off of that and just to rest at home. And we're kind of still in that resting moment. It's been about 2 years since we've been part of a co-op. And we've actually just been able to really enjoy each other as a family again too, by taking the time to rest. So every year will be different. There might be a year that you want to be part of a co-op, and then there might be a year that, oh, well, I think this is a year for no co-op. And I've talked to several homeschoolers who have had that same experience. They're like, well, we did co-op for a couple of years, but we just needed a break this year. So definitely don't hold yourself to something that you decide. If it's not working, change it up and try again. Do we have any other questions coming up through here? If anybody that we didn't answer, I know we didn't answer any curriculum questions tonight. So if anybody had any curriculum questions or anything, we can answer those.
I might just mention something that covers a few of the topics from SAT through the academia sort of things. Mike Rowe, the Dirty Jobs guy, he really is on a bent to say we need people in the trades. And so again, as we explore what's good for our children, remember that there's many avenues out there. There's also statistics out there that are saying that our children really don't need anything beyond algebra for most of what they're going to experience in life. And I'll tag on to that to say our children's brains are very elastic and they can learn very quickly. So like with SAT, if I had a kid that kind of had that bent toward continuing on with education, I would look as they're coming into high school or into the end of high school and get them exposed to what they're going to need to do that. The other thing is that our kids they're learning all the time and they're learning to learn. And so saying that we have to prepare them right from kindergarten for college, you can prepare them for college the year before college. They're very dynamic in how they learn, and at the same time we might have, I remember with Sophia, our oldest, she was going through math lessons. She just wasn't getting it, and I was trying, and then Christina was like, well, let's just stop for a little bit. And so we did, and she was about halfway through the math book, and Christina's like, let's just go back to the beginning of the math book. So she started over again. We were just pushing too hard. I shouldn't say pushing too hard. We were just doing a lesson every day, but she wasn't at that point yet of learning that. I know that we've all kind of talked about that, but remember that the Lord has different paths for our children and for us to enable them in those. And so you asked a question about school and that sort of thing. All of our children aren't on the same path. And whatever they need, the Lord is going to equip us with, and they're able to dynamically learn as the Lord will lead them in service to Him.
Definitely. And trying to piggyback off of what you were saying, Scott, is a lot of times public schools try to put our kids in a box, and it's our jobs as parents to take them out of that box. Let them grow, let them stretch, let them open up their minds to what they want to learn about, and let them, challenge things, challenge your thinking, challenge your beliefs. If they're not challenged, they're not going to develop a good core biblical worldview. They're going to fall at the first thing, especially when it comes to the college. That's what we've been noticing with our daughter goes to a Christian college, but a lot of her friends claim to be Christians, but she's discovering are not Christians because they did not have a good biblical foundation growing up in that. So questions here about curriculum. So I saw one about video schooling and if we've used any videos. We used Matthew C for our math program. We love Matthew C. That's a video-based program. We've used, I don't remember what that one was called though.
We actually did 1 year, for 1 year, we did an online school curriculum where it had everything on there. Monarch.
Yeah, Monarch.
It worked better for some of our kids than others. But there's a lot of video with that and a lot of interactive games and things like that. Here's the great thing about homeschooling. You can learn by doing just about anything. I'm an HVAC technician and an appliance repairman. One of the things I do is once in a while, I'll just take one of my kids to work with me. So if you ever have me come fix something at your house, I may have a kid with me and he's learning or she's learning. My second oldest daughter loves to go to work with me. She'll anticipate the tools I need when I'm looking at it. She'll see what I'm doing and she'll hand me the tool before I've even turned around to reach for it. Your kids will learn no matter what you do with them. They're learning. It's what we do. It's how we're made. So, homeschooling can be doing anything. Your vacations become field trips and learning opportunities. I mean, everything is homeschooling. It's all homeschooling. So you don't have to fit into any kind of box. Videos work for some kids and not so much for others. It just depends on your child.
And to kind of touch up with that, the 1 year that we used Monarch, it was another change up year for us. I was pregnant with our youngest and I had a hard pregnancy. And so I needed something that was not so much parent grading every single thing. I needed something that could take care some of the responsibility off my hands because we ended up having her in the middle of the school year too. So that's what going on with, changing things up, and sometimes things work. That worked great for us that year. Would I go back to Monarch? Probably not, because it was only good for that time period for us. There are other programs too. There's lots of different video programs out there. We've used some other online math programs. We've used A+ software for math too. Math I think you'll find that with a lot of homeschoolers, that's the one subject that it seems to take people a long time to figure out. It took me about, 5 or 6 years before we finally settled on Matthew C and it worked for our family. So it does, that kind of gives you a little bit of, if something's not working for you and if you feel like am I ever going to find a solution, you will find a solution. It just may take you a few years before you find that solution. And
it's another good reason, to go to a convention. Hopefully everything will be opened up before summer. If you can go to ICHE, go. There are all kinds. Math is one of the big things that you'll have 3 or 4 tables set up with different curriculums, and you can actually walk through with the person behind the table, how does this work? And you can take your child to those 4 different booths and see which one grabs their interest. With the Matthew C, they have manipulatives where you can use different blocks and things. That works great for our boys because, they're Lego addicts. They like to build, and that's what they can do with the Matthew C is they can move the blocks and things around to help them with their addition and multiplication and all that. So there's a lot of good curriculums that you can scope out at a convention.
Another great resource is Rainbow Resources. They're local here. I believe they're in Toulon. They have actual experienced homeschool moms that have retired that you can actually call up and talk with. And just talk out, you know, this is what my child, you know, this is the characteristics of my child, this is what they enjoy, and they can recommend different curriculum choices for you too. Where is the ICHE convention? It is in Bourbonnais. Conveniently, it's on Olivet's campus in Kankakee there. So it's about 2 hours from Peoria. It's about 2 hours from my house, yeah, when we go there. Yeah, it's about 2 hours. And it's at the end of May. I think it's like the, 29th, 30th, and 31st, Kirk, I think, somewhere around those lines.
Yeah, May 28th. Again, we're still dealing with the coronavirus like you guys are. We're supposed to have our final call like April the 8th or 9th if we're going to have it. And like I said before, if you do, because you're part of this one, we can get you a coupon. You can email me at ksmith@iche.org, and we can send you a coupon since you're part of Apache and ICHE. And if I could also just add, and I've just loved hearing, Christine and Scott and Arcasia and James, because our visions are so similar. If you go to our website, ICHE.org, you can click on receive our newsletter. And I also put out every week, I put out a 3 to 5 minute video. We call them Take Fives, just everything they're talking about. It's just more confirmation. It's, again, we're not anti-academics. Please hear that. I'm sure these couples, but it's more than academics. And that's what we want to really discuss. And, you know, I said, we're terrible at math. My son is a sophomore chemical engineer major at the University of Louisville. He's got straight A's in his calculus. I can't even spell calculus. And, you know, but the heart is, you just hear this heartbeat going over and over. And so many people miss this aspect of homeschooling. And it's the root. It's not the branch, it's the root. And if you get Jesus Christ right, all the branches take care of themselves.
Right. All right, we have another question. It says, what about playing sports at your local public school that are still able to participate? Okay, this is going to vary for each school district. Our experience, because the school district we are in is IBC, Chillicothe's high school requires half-day attendance in order for you to participate in their extracurriculars. We weren't happy to hear that because our daughter wanted to be in track. It didn't work out. But there are plenty of other options out there if your school district wants to be a pain in the butt in that way. The park districts have sports. There are
the Christian Center.
Christian Center has sports. Pierce in Chillicothe, if you're in that area, has sports. There are a lot of opportunities for sports out there that you don't have to go through the public school district. And I personally think it's ridiculous that they would ask your student to be half-time there, because your taxes are also helping to pay for that school. But they have the right to request that, in our state. So you'll have to contact your school district and find out. There are some other school districts in this area that don't put any kind of stipulations. If your child wants to be part of it, they just have to be there at the right time to be a part of it, which is great. But IBC, unfortunately, is not one of those districts. The only thing that IBC does have that they'll let a homeschool child participate in is the driver's ed program, and I think that's because they are required to let your child do that. So I hope that answers that question.
And if I may add something there, I played college basketball and golf. Sports is kind of a tricky thing. Some people think it's of hell itself. I don't. The Bible says the glory of a young man is his strength, and I think a lot of young homeschooling boys, they'd be blown over with a good wind. I don't think that's healthy. But boy, sports is a very, you got to be careful. I have seen rebellion come in through guys hanging out in the locker rooms, bring it to the homes. One family from my area that I actually met at an ICHE, first time I met them there, their older boy was into sports, got in the locker room. He became a rebel. His sister became a rebel. Right down the line, the family ended up getting divorced. Tragic tale. And again, that's not just a sports problem. The Bible says bad company corrupts good habits. And like James said, there's so many good opportunities out there outside of that. And folks, your kid's not going to be a professional. I don't know how to tell you that, but he's just not going to be. So how much time and energy and resource are we going to pour into something that's going to be a dry hole? I think exercise is very important. You know, we all play golf here. We have a volleyball net. We're all big sand volleyball players. So I think exercise is good, but there's a spiritual dynamic to the sports side. Again, I played college ball, so, you know, I'm not anti-sports, but you need to be careful with that.
Definitely. Do we have any other questions before we close out this meeting? This has been a great talk. We've had some really great questions that have come up, and we've really enjoyed Kirk speaking and the Myers and their insights also. I just want to reiterate before, as I stall for time in case we have any extra questions coming at the end, that connect with us on Facebook through Apache. Connect with us personally. Christina and I both have our Facebooks out there that you can connect with us. Ask us questions, and we are more than willing. I mean, I usually have, you know, once or twice a month, I have a homeschooler or someone who's considering homeschooling contacting me with questions, and I invite them over, and we share a cup of coffee and tea, we chit chat, and I just try to encourage them and answer the questions. And I know Christina has also been willing to open up her home too. So let us know if you have any other questions that we haven't enjoyed or haven't talked about tonight. We can definitely get you guys the answers and just encouragement. That's Apache's goal. It stands for Association of Peoria Area Christian Home Educators. And we really just want to encourage families in their home education journey. A lot of times we don't necessarily get that in this world today, where we're just building each other up and we're really walking this lifestyle together. And we just want to make sure that we can be an encouragement to you guys. Once again, if you want to participate in our online convention that's going on this weekend, Friday and Saturday, click the link that I sent out earlier and sign up tonight, because that registration is closing tonight at 10. And I believe there is a discounted rate for people that are part of this group tonight.
Yeah, and I just want to say, I think I can speak for the Myers as well. You know, our families have gotten involved in leading this organization because we want to encourage other people in their homeschooling journey. We would be more than willing to have you come and have dinner with us in our home. Let your kids come over and play with their kids, and just talk and get to know each other. And you can ask us all the questions you want. We're more than willing to do that. It doesn't have to only be limited to a Facebook question. We want to be involved personally. So, you know, that invitation is there. It's an open invitation. You know, feel free to contact us and say, when can we come over for dinner? You know, we'll have you over. We'll cook out. We'll sit out on our back deck, or, you know, whatever.
At least for the next 2 weeks, because we're actually in the process of moving too.
Right. So, but yes.
Yeah, that's the same for us. Our address is 40 Bone Gap Road.
He was giving Kirk's address.
Yeah, we'll see at Kirk's house. No, we're also open for anybody who wants to come over and sit down and explore this with us.
Yeah, we live in Spring Bay.
And we want to invite you to our house. It's like August the 25th, we have a Southern Illinois family day at our house. We have about 400 people. We've had folks from Peoria come. So, yeah, bring one to Bone Gap.
All right.
All right, so some final thoughts. If you guys want a copy of this recording, because we have recorded it, send me an email message request. It's cfomediadirector@gmail.com, and I can get you a copy of this. Just to be able to listen to again if you guys want to recap and want some more encouragement. Anything else? No more questions? So.
Okay, I don't see any more questions. Thank you again for tuning in and spending some time with us. I hope this has been encouraging. I hope it's given you a chance to breathe again, to release some of the weight that you might be carrying, trying to figure out what's the next step. So again, we're more than happy to spend more time easing your burden and just helping you enjoy your family. So give us a, yeah.
Could you close us off in prayer too as we go out?
Absolutely. So yeah, contact us, please. We want to help you in any way we possibly can.
Mm-hmm.
All right, yeah, let's go ahead and close in prayer. And thanks again for tuning in. Father, we thank you for the opportunity to gather on a public internet forum where we can interact, where we can encourage others, where we can get answers to things that we're struggling with. God, I thank you that you've given the Myers and my family and Kurt's family the opportunity to share our journey with others who are just getting started. Father, I want to pray for these families that are taking steps towards changing the dynamic of their family. God, if this is where you are steering them, then this is what you have called them to do, and you will give them everything they need to do it. Father, I pray that you would give them confidence in you. I pray that you would give them a new love for their children, and I pray that you would turn their children's hearts toward their parents, just like your word says. Father, give all these families here wisdom, give them grace, give them patience, and Father, give them joy as they step out in faith to do what you've called them to do. And I ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Mhm.
Amen.
Thanks, everybody.